Let's talk about food some more. Well, I'm not going to talk.
Grenade. Burn it to the ground.
Oh, damn, they just burned the people's house up. I want to play the video, but I'm not that
The terrifying screams of my
technically.
wife and daughter woke me up to my worst nightmare. My family running scared down the stairs in the dead of night, not knowing what happened, tripping over our daughter's toys through the thick smoke, crawling, trying to find the door. Our beautiful house and our beloved hard-worked farm were turning into ashes right before my eyes. And they didn't take anything. They just wanted to see our farm that we relied upon for our survival burned to the ground. How did that happen? How did we end up getting burned at the stake for growing our own food? Hi, my name is Alec Deacon, and I almost got lynched for providing for my family and my community. I almost got lynched for food. It's something that just shouldn't happen, not in our day and age, but it did. And that experience forced me to look for an alternative on-demand food source, something that I could use day in and out, something small but hyper-productive that would turn acres of greenhouses and seedling farmland into an almost invisible food generator without putting my family in danger ever again. And I've found it. An amazing invention that the people of Gaza, living in the middle of a war zone, used to provide an abundance of fresh and healthy food for their families in one of the most arid places on Earth. So stick with me for the next 5 minutes, and I'll show you how they speed grow vast amounts of healthy, high-calorie foods with no actual backbreaking work in the middle of the desert, where they can't dig wells for irrigation or get water through pipes. Hint, it's like a pocket-sized Garden of Eden. But before we get into that, I want you to know why my farm and my house got burned down, why it happened to me, and why, in a way, it might happen to you too. So what I'm about to tell you right now, you might find disturbing. My fellow patriot, the events that are about to unravel are about to turn your life upside down in the coming months. The media is not saying a word because it would generate mass hysteria and chaos. But the real truth I'm about to expose will make even the most tough-minded patriots' blood boil. I'll reveal how a devastating once-in-a-thousand-years event, along with corporate greed and corruption, are setting the stage for a social and economic time bomb that will detonate right in the middle of the U.S. I'll reveal how the impending collapse of the U.S. food supply system will steal the food from your kids' tables, leaving them hungry and helpless, and forcing them to scavenge for scraps. And I'll explain what you must do today to ensure that you and your family not only survive, but thrive in the upcoming turmoil that's about to hit. So stick with me until the end of this very short presentation. That won't be up for long. And I'll give you a somewhat weird but insanely effective way to build a super nutritious food force field around your loved ones and your community that the government and food monopolies simply cannot steal from you. Like I said, my name is Alec Deacon. You may know me from my website, survivopedia.com. I'm a writer and editor there. People usually seek my advice because I specialize in urban and wilderness survival for over 20 years, and because I'm almost religious about my right to be independent and to be able to feed and protect myself and my family. That's why I've made it my life's purpose to help everyone I can, giving them practical, safe guidance that would actually make a difference in survival scenarios, and to expose the hidden dangers that threaten our rights and our very existence. But even more important, I'm a proud father and husband. I live on a small farm in Coralville, Iowa, with my wife and our 9-year-old daughter, and we're self-sufficient people. We grow our own food and build our own house. 4 years ago, we had a big, beautiful, rich garden filled with everything a family of 3 would need for a full year of healthy meals. But when the drought hit, it took everything from us. Every seedling, every plant, and every root dried. It got so bad that even our small livestock started to die. We lost everything. And when winter came, it even got to a point where I had to go and forage or hunt just to put food on the table. I realized that I needed a greenhouse to preserve the little water we had on our land so we could still grow our own food. So I talked to my wife and we got a loan from the bank and we built our own greenhouse. And it was great. We could grow everything sooner, faster, and better. It got so good, actually, that we even managed to open up a small farm shop in our garage to provide our local community with healthy, organic, GMO-free food. But little did we know that our small community shop would eventually bring us the wrong kind of attention. 2 months after we'd opened, I got an unexpected visit from the local landowner, asking me if I was interested in selling my shop and my farm. I was actually a bit proud to hear his offer, but I told him my property was not for sale. He smiled, said, "Have a good day," and left. And I didn't think much of it. Until I woke up later that night to my wife and daughter screaming in terror. I couldn't make sense of what was going on. It was pitch black, and it felt hot, suffocating, like I was in an oven. And the smell. I'll never forget that smell. Heavy, toxic, metallic even. And then I saw a flicker out the window. The house was on fire. I grabbed Lily from her bed, took my wife by the hand, and rushed downstairs. The smoke was so thick we had to crawl on the living room floor to get to the door. I reached up to the door handle, and with my last breath, I opened it and literally threw my wife and Lily out. And then it all went dark. The last thing I remember was seeing 4 men with gasoline cans and torches in our greenhouse yelling, "Burn it! Burn it to the ground!" I woke up in an ambulance, getting rushed to the ER, with my wife and daughter standing next to me, holding my hand. And I'll never forget what my sweet Lily said. "Mommy, is Daddy going to die? Are the bad men following us?" Hearing that crushed my soul. When we got to the hospital, the doctors told me it was nothing short of a miracle that I was still alive. My wife had dragged me out of the house right before it was too late. I suffered severe carbon monoxide poisoning. After I came back from the hospital, I just wasn't myself. I couldn't believe anyone would do such a thing. It's the stuff I'd expect to see in movies, not in my own house. And we were lucky even to have a house. A neighbor had seen the flames and called 911 just in time. We had to rebuild the roof and most of the south wall. We were lucky to be alive. But even though I was thankful that my family and I were alive, I was so angry. I felt this choking cloak of anger clouding my judgment. Why did this happen? What have we done to deserve being burned alive like heretics in the Middle Ages? For what? And the one simple and rotten answer is money. The big corporations are desperate for power. They know what's coming, and they have to be at the top of the literal food chain when it happens. My small shop, my beautiful greenhouse, my small business, that's something that they cannot have out in the open. That idea of being self-sufficient, being out of their control, out of their dirty reach, that gets other people thinking as well. And soon enough, they might be looking at a food revolution. I refuse to sell, and because they can't control what they don't own, they've burned everything to the ground. And that's what's happening to every little mom-and-pop farm and every little shop trying to make an honest living, providing their loved ones and their communities with real, healthy, GMO-free food. They're forced to either close, sell, or worse. I'd witnessed firsthand what they're capable of, so I knew I had to find an alternative to conventional food sources, something that would put food on the table on demand for my family and me without the logistic nightmare and cost of stockpiling or building a new greenhouse that would put my family in danger again. It had to be something super productive, but at the same time small enough to be invisible even to the trained eye. Something that would work both outside and inside the comfort of our home, and something even portable, if, God forbid, we had to bug out and leave everything behind to save our lives. Now, having specialized in wilderness survival for over 20 years and being self-sufficient for over half that time, I have come across a few designs and working principles on small footprint, high output farming concepts. But it wasn't something that I was really familiar with. I knew how to grow a good garden, raise chickens, forage, and even hunt if needed. But what I wanted for myself and my family was simply above my level of knowledge. So I reached out to my contacts in the survival and off-grid community, looking for answers on how I could achieve my goal and why we got burned down in the first place. And what I found out shocked me. I learned about the 3 terrifying signs that a cataclysmic collapse will happen sometime in the next 18 months or less. Signs that veteran off-gridders, survival masters, financial experts, and even investment bankers call the 3 horsemen of the food apocalypse, because they bring with them a deadly social and economic crisis with immediate effects on your ability to feed your family. And if you don't act fast, if you don't act now, you're going to miss your chance to become self-sufficient and independent, a chance to make your family recession-proof and disaster-proof, while the unprepared zombies will be starving and killing each other over a loaf of rotten bread. The first horseman is drought. NASA has scientific proof that we're facing a drought that's going to last 100 years, A 100 years mega drought that's going to affect us in every aspect of life, no matter where we live. The bad news is, it's already here. The mega drought has already begun, and the past 15 years are just the tip of the iceberg, a tiny peak of what's about to unravel. This is the reason why NASA is using expensive satellites to study water, both above and below ground. Take Lake Mead, for example. The largest water reservoir in the U.S. now sinks to a record low. It reached its lowest level since the lake was first filled out in 1930. And that's not all. There are plenty of lakes in California just vanishing because of the high demand from households and parched farmers. What's even more frightening is there's water disappearing all throughout the North American continent, not just here in the U.S. The Canadian Lake Superior, the world's largest freshwater lake, has dropped to its lowest level in 81 years. But what most people don't know is that it's going to get a lot worse. As the New York Times reports, on the fifth assessment of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they mentioned in each of the next 80 years, America is expected to see less and less rainfall than in 2004, for instance, when the drought started. We're turning into a desert, and thousands of crops are disappearing all throughout the country. The result will be famine and death. People will fight over a sip of water just to stay alive. And because most of our crops will be gone, we'll have to fight over scraps so we don't starve. And that's when the second horseman will show its face, greed. We've already seen this 10 years ago, just as the drought was starting, causing soy, corn, and meat prices to soar 10%. In July 2012, the government turned on the printing machine and dumped $2 trillion in the laps of the biggest banks through quantitative easing. The official story was that all this money should have gone back into the economy to help small businesses and people like you and me. Yet greedy banks invested this money into food commodities like corn and soy because they're way more profitable. So when they went out and bought hundreds of millions of dollars worth of food, the global market took a double punch. And the result was a mass genocide that would make Hitler and Stalin envious. The criminal speculation in commodity prices caused them to soar even higher, causing food inflation and mass starvation. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. But it's not 2012 anymore. Banks and greedy monopolist corporations are not just buying millions of dollars worth of food, skyrocketing prices again. No, they've ramped up their greed. This time they're also investing in genetically modified foods, GMOs. The cover story is they're looking for a way to get the highest possible yields from drought-beaten, underperforming crops. It might have started that way before the big monopolies pushed their way in. Now it's all about power and money. Whoever has the best performing seed controls the market, the price, and the buyer. And that buyer is you and me. That's why my house and farm got torched, because I wasn't there in line buying their food, their GMOs, and their filth. Because I'm trying to provide my family and my community with good, healthy, unmonopolized real food. And that's something they cannot have. Sure, corrupt politicians will swear in the Bible that that's not true, and that there's no food inflation, while at the same time mortgaging our children's future. But inflation is everywhere. The drought has already ramped up. We're coming out of the biggest pandemic of the last 100 years, and combined with the current global economic and political climate, with everything going on in Europe adding to a massive spike in gas and energy prices, plus the highest inflation in the past 50 years, all on top of an Eastern European grain and fertilizer supply crisis, we're looking at a 300% inflation rate for every food item we find in supermarkets within the next 12 months. And that's when the real nightmare starts to unfold. Because that's when the third horseman starts galloping towards the U.S., and his name is war. And more specifically for you and me, it's a food war, and it's hitting right in the heart of America. For the first time in almost a century, America is on the edge of a full-blown social and economic collapse, one that will make the Great Depression feel like a rehearsal. People no longer see the food lines, but they're longer than ever. Right now, over 40 million Americans are living on food stamps, enough to create a 25,000-mile food line that would surround the equator, and 20 million of them are children. What do you think people will do when their children look at them with big, sad, teary eyes saying, "Daddy, I'm hungry"? You've seen how they've handled things during the pandemic. All it takes is a few lockdowns of key sectors, and the entire U.S. food supply system freezes. What's really frightening is the U.S. doesn't even have to be a war zone for you to be unable to feed your family. If trucks can't haul food across America, or if panicked mobs loot the superstores in your area, your family is left at the mercy of an incompetent government, and FEMA won't be able to help you because they can't even help themselves. Having no food turns you into a beast. Ever tried skipping 3 meals or more? It messes with your head, and you'll have to beg, borrow, or steal just to feed your children. During the Great Depression, many children were forced to work on labor farms for a hot meal. Wives abandoned their husbands, hoping they would be better on their own. Thousands of families fell apart because they lost all hope of surviving together. Yet, when food is abundant, you have unlimited options. In a crisis situation, there's almost nothing that food can't pay for. Car broke down and you need a new battery? Food can get you a brand new one from someone desperate. Need someone to chop wood? In a depression, there will be plenty of people willing to work for a meal. When the unthinkable happens, roles in society are reversed. Being able to read fancy spreadsheets might be useful today, but in a crashing society, it will put you at the bottom of the food chain. Adaptability, strength, and the ability to feed yourself and others, that's what makes you a true leader. I, for one, decided to put my family first, to protect my loved ones and our independence no matter what. I couldn't rely on supermarkets, and neither should any American. Hunting, fishing, or foraging might also sound like a good idea until 500 desperate hunters are shooting at the same deer. I can't even rely on my land for feeding my family because they'd probably burn us down again, and my sweet Lily still has nightmares from the first time it happened. So, what can we do? Thankfully, my friends that I reached out to from the international survival community told me about a hidden gemstone, an innovative and rather weird technique called aquaponics that the people of Gaza were using in an arid war zone. Among falling missiles and mortars, those people are using this method to feed their families, even if they have no water, no money, no fertile soils, no space to grow food, and no time to do it either. I realized that if these people are using it at wartime, it would be the perfect source of food during an extended crisis. I was intrigued by this aquaponic story, so I asked my friends if they could help me with more information. The answer came from 8,000 miles away, from arid Australia. It was an aquaponic success story that blew me away. Battling record-setting temperatures and severe water restrictions, this guy had created his own little backyard pocket farm, spending 20 times less money than on a traditional garden of the same yield. From a tiny 300-square-foot backyard, every single month, he was getting around 80 pounds of juicy tomatoes, 15 pounds of bell peppers, 60 pounds of delicious zucchini, 60 pounds of cucumbers, not to mention onions, beets, radishes, spinach, and even some carrots. And on top of that, he was getting about 700 pounds of fish every single year. This amazing setup was exactly what I needed. It completely eliminated the hassle of spending a small fortune and hours on end of back-breaking work, thousands of gallons of water for watering the garden, and the dangers of making myself visible to the food grid. This sounded too good to be true. The catch? The whole system had cost him $6,000. That was way too much for what I had in mind, but I knew I was onto something, and a crazy idea started growing in the back of my mind. I wanted to find a way to build this for under $1,000, and to help my local community and as many people as I could to become self-sufficient and prepared for anything. Eventually, I found an unbelievably easy way to make your own aquaponics that cost me 3 times less than what I was hoping for. But before I get to that, let me explain what aquaponics is all about. In simple words, an aquaponics system is a pocket-sized garden of Eden, where fish and plants sustain each other in an almost perfect balance. The plants purify the water for the fish, while the fish do all the hard work for you, fertilizing the plants with their waste. You get tasty fish and juicy vegetables, almost without lifting a finger. Aquaponics is a happy marriage between the soilless practice of hydroponics and fish farming. You may have heard of hydroponics. It requires very little space and gives high yields throughout the year, and even NASA is using it in space. Yet it's also complicated to set up, requires a lot of water, and the nitrogen-rich plant food can be very expensive. Fish farming, on the other hand, gives all the protein you need to survive that you simply can't get from tomatoes or broccoli, but it's also impractical and dirty. It creates a lot of waste that's toxic to the fish, and filtering that waste can get really expensive really fast. Aquaponics gets the best from hydroponics and fish farming, with none of the drawbacks. The ammonia-rich fish waste is turned into the perfect plant food, while in turn the plants purify the water for the fish. It's win-win-win for the plants, the fish, but mostly for you. because there's no watering required, no fertilizing, no bending, and actually no real work. Learning about aquaponics got me really excited, but also a little frustrated. It seemed that all the stuff I could find on the internet was either confusing or downright worthless. The books I read lacked essential details or were too academic and complex, and the people I talked to were just weekend enthusiasts who couldn't help me with my goal. But I kept hearing stories about a professor who knew a way to make aquaponic systems just as good as the retail ones for only a few $100. His name was Nate Story, a very unusual PhD and part-time inventor whose main specialty and passion was in designing high-density vertical aquaponic systems. After a few minutes with him on the phone, I instantly knew I was talking to one of the most knowledgeable experts on earth in aquaponics. I paid Nate for his time and asked him whether he could help me build a simple, inexpensive, yet powerful high-output aquaponic system with long-term self-sufficiency and survival in mind. He agreed, and we got to work. And 6 hours later, I had it. My own pocket farm, or the food generator as my wife likes to call it. It cost me a little over $400, $402.15 to be more precise, but it was all worth it because it was simply amazing. I'd been gardening for over 10 years, and I'd never seen plants grow so fast. I was in awe. I knew then and there that my family would never go hungry, no matter what's heading our way. And I knew that we'd be safe, growing our own food, without ever worrying about being burned to the stake for wanting to give our daughter the safety and comfort every child deserves. After I got my first batch of juicy, flavored, and healthy vegetables, and my first fish fillet, I called all my friends and neighbors in the community to share with them this amazing marvel, and they were stunned. They just couldn't believe something this small could produce so much food that fast. I probably spent the next 3 months helping each and every one of them to make their own miniature hyper-productive farm. And each and every time I got to witness the avalanche of comfort that takes over people when they realize they won't ever have to worry about their families and loved ones suffering from hunger, even in the direst situations. And the results kept coming. More and more people wanted my help in building this amazing system. It actually got to a point where I was away so much that it started to affect my marriage. So me and my wife sat down and talked, and she came up with this great idea. She thought I should make some kind of step-by-step tutorial so people could put together their own pocket farm. So I went back to Nate and told him about it. I told him this time I didn't want any academic mumbo-jumbo. This had to be so simple my 9-year-old daughter would be able to build it. We brainstormed together on what would make the ultimate high-output aquaponics blueprint for the absolute beginner with zero DIY experience. I provided the survival and preparedness knowledge while Nate brought his 10 years of aquaponics research, and the result was nothing short of amazing. A simple, step-by-step video blueprint that anyone can use to make their own aquaponics system the lazy way. And Nate did a lot more than that. He managed to cut the building costs by half. So our total costs? Just $190, which included $40 for a pair of extra hands and $75 on a part that we could have probably gotten for free. We packaged that material into the first ever program on self-sufficient aquaponics, and we called it the Pocket Farm, the smart, easy way to food independence. After we finished it, I showed it to a very small, select group of my best friends and colleagues from the survival community. And here's what Max Slavo, the owner of SHTFplan.com, had to say. This is hands down the most easy-to-use aquaponics instructional guide I've ever seen. When we talk about preparedness, food sustainability is at the top of the list, and with Pocket Farm, you get just that. It's a complete homegrown system that will ensure your family's safety in the event of long-term interruptions to our food supply. The Pocket Farm is the only proven-to-work A to Z blueprint on how to survive America's upcoming food war, and the easiest step-by-step video guide that anyone can use to build their own high-output food generator, no matter if you have no money to spend on a ridiculous off-the-shelf $10,000 device. I put together these simple instructions so you can provide fresh, healthy, and tasty meals for your family no matter what's heading our way. No matter if you don't have the time or patience to go through trials and errors. No matter if you've never built anything before, not even a set of Legos. No matter if you've never done any gardening in your entire life. Look, when I discovered aquaponics, I knew that I had found a gold mine. The benefits are nothing short of amazing. You hardly need any water. With the current drought setting in and with water restrictions going from local to nationwide, whatever water you have will go towards quenching your family's thirst. The Pocket Farm aquaponics system uses less than 10% of the water used in conventional gardening because all the water is recycled between the fish tank and the growing beds. So you never lose water to soil absorption, only through evaporation. That also means you'll recoup your investment fast because you no longer have to pay for water, especially if you live in a dry area. It's probably the only way to grow food in colder areas like New England in the middle of winter. In fact, we shot the video in January, and you can still see the snow. Unlike regular gardening, with aquaponics, you still have plenty of food in the cold months. Aquaponics also only requires about 10% of the space you need for gardening. Palestinians are actually doing aquaponics on rooftops, so you don't even need a backyard. Heck, you can even put one on your balcony or in your basement. Using less space means that it's easier to protect from looters, and also easier to keep it a secret. Plus, there's no fertilization required. Just feed the fish and the fish will fertilize the plants. When all you do is feed the fish for 2 minutes and harvest vegetables for another 3, this gives you crucial time to do more essential things in a crisis. While others will be busy dumpster diving for food, your miniature food factory takes care of itself. You'll have more time to protect your family, to learn a valuable skill you can barter with, or to be the James T. Kirk of your community. There's no bending or back-breaking work required. Instead, you grow your vegetables in soil-free, raised growing beds. So if you suffer from a bad back, you don't have to worry about straining it at the worst of times. And now you too can join in on this life-saving system. So I promise you this. If you can push play and watch a short video once, you have all you need to make your own pocket-sized Garden of Eden, and have an endless source of food, no matter what's heading our way. If spending thousands of dollars on toxic supermarket GMOs they sell for food is not your idea of a good family meal, if you want to be food independent and to put healthy, nutritious food on your table, even in a disaster situation, if you want to stop filling Big Food's slimy pockets with your blood, sweat, and tears, and if you've ever wanted a fun, simple way to build a virtually unlimited long-term safety net for you and your family, almost on autopilot, with only 5 minutes a day of easy maintenance, then this is it. The Pocket Farm system is the solution if you want your family to be healthy, safe, and self-sufficient. A disaster-proof, recession-proof, drought-proof, year-round pocket-sized garden that will give you all the high-protein, vitamin-rich food you and your family will need in the disaster that's looming over our heads. It's a step-by-step, newbie-friendly program that will take you by the hand and put fresh food on your table in as little as 2 weeks, so you can slash your grocery bill almost immediately, all from the comfort and safety of your home. But most of all, it will give you the peace of mind that comes from knowing that, should a disaster strike, your family won't be at the mercy of others. The Pocket Farm program is...
So, that's 2 videos that I've posted about aquaponics, which is just one way of growing food. Now, aquaponics, as he said, deals with growing or, growing fish along with your vegetables, etc. Now, if you're a vegan or vegetarian, if you don't eat fish, then you can have the fish like an aquarium. Just keep the fish, don't eat the fish, and they still got a poo-poo and doo-doo, and that poo-poo and doo-doo, going back to childhood, poo-poo and doo-doo nourish the plants. Simple. You don't have to think about it. Nourishing and soil and mixture for the soil and food for blah blah blah. So that's why I'm posting this video, and I think that's about it. I'll post other stuff, but as I say always, or will be saying, my thing is growing hemp. We will be growing food, also food, fruits, or vegetables, fruits, blah, 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 blah. But I believe that hemp can take care of all our needs, including nutrition. I'm out. Peace. I should put it on the button before I say peace. Peace.